about 39 million Colombians at home and abroad will choose the nation's president and vice president on Sunday. Russian President Vladimir Putin reiterated to the leaders of France and Germany his readiness to resume the dialogue with Ukraine. At least 35 people have been reported dead in the last 24 hours due to heavy rains affecting the city of Recife, East Brazil. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Leo Martin from the Telesur Studios in Havana. We begin with the news. About 39 million Colombians at home and abroad will choose the nation's president and vice president on Sunday. 6 candidates face off for the presidency in a country ravaged by the economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, social unrest, and deteriorating security. Around 39 million voters will cast their ballots in the first round of elections. If none of the candidates wins by an absolute majority, a second round will be held on June 19th. The United Nations Organization of Colombia said it expects the presidential elections to guarantee the political rights of citizens and their representatives, as well as the principles of transparency, accountability, and rule of law. On the eve of the presidential elections, the National Registrar Alexander Vega assured that over 160,000 electoral witnesses were officialized. The official has once again emphasized that the campaigns delayed the registration of their witnesses, a version expressly denied by the coalition Historical Pact and Team for Colombia. According to the numbers provided by the National Civil Registrar's Office, the number of witnesses for the electoral process reaches 160,381. Vega clarified that shortly before 17 hours local time, when the process was closed, other files that are currently being processed were uploaded. In the same declaration, the head of the registry assured that everything was ready for the electoral process to be held normally. The Historical Pact Coalition's candidate for Colombia's presidency, Gustavo Petro, expressed his concern a few hours before the beginning of Election Day, since the audit of the software used to count the results will not be allowed. The candidate of the Progressive Coalition warned that the territorial presence of the observation missions is useless if the software audit has not been allowed, neither internally nor externally. The decision has been taken by the National Registry of the Civil State. Gustavo Petro explained that the technical audit of the software is a guarantee for all parties' candidacies and for society in general, for which he asked the international commissions to demand from the General Registry, the body in charge of the organization of Election Day, answers on the reasons why they prevented the audit to be carried out. On Friday, President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, confirmed that she had a telephone conversation with the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, in which she ratified her expectations that all the countries of the Americas are invited to the summit. The head of state confirmed that during the conversation they discussed issues related to the cooperation between the two countries and updated matters discussed at their meeting on January 27th regarding the measures that Castro's government has taken in the Central American nation. During the conversation, the Honduran president ratified to the U.S. vice president her government's position regarding the attendance of all countries of the region to the Summit of the Americas, scheduled to be held in the city of Los Angeles.
Well, I have been very clear. I have said it. Today, I was talking. I received a call from the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and it was a very pleasant conversation. I have been very clear in the sense that we have been shaping ourselves in a struggle, and we have ideals. We also have motivations. One of them is the inspiration that Francis Morazan left us with the unity of Central America. José Martí, who fought for the unity of America. We have been very clear that for this summit, which is very close, in June, An invitation is necessary for all the people in America, so that we can analyze the problems that affect us in the region, especially to discuss issues like poverty and the environment. All nations will be heard so that together we can find a solution.
The National Assembly of Venezuela appointed a special commission to investigate the statements made by former U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper about the invasion attempts to the South American country. Pedro Infante, deputy of the National Assembly, informed that, additionally, those proposals that were passed by the then National Assembly in contempt in the 2016-2021 legislative period will be investigated. They will also establish a systematic process and determine responsibilities so that the country can rely on the truthfulness and the national and international levels about the invasion that, according to the former United States Secretary of Defense, was attempted against Venezuela.
President Jorge Rodriguez appointed a special committee to investigate the confessions of former U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper about the plans to assassinate President Nicolás Maduro and invade Venezuela. Plans that involved U.S. President Donald Trump, Juan Guaido, and other notorious members of Venezuelan opposition.
We're going to take a short break now. Please stay with us. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. Russian President Vladimir Putin reiterated to the leaders of France and Germany his readiness to resume the dialogue with Ukraine. The Russian president held a telephone conversation with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, in which they exchanged views focused on efforts to resolve the situation in Ukraine. During the telephone contact, Macron and Scholz urged the Russian president to have direct and serious negotiations with Ukraine and to seek a diplomatic solution to the conflict. Putin recalled that negotiations are frozen on Kiev's side. Meanwhile, he reiterated Moscow's readiness to continue negotiations while warning about the dangers of providing Ukraine with Western weapons. Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, urged U.S. President Joe Biden to dismiss the idea of delivering long-range ballistic missiles to the Ukrainian government. The statements by Moscow's diplomatic representative in the U.S. Capitol came in response to information published in the media claiming the White House had decided to supply Kyiv with multiple rocket launchers. The Russian official emphasized that this information needs to be carefully verified. However, he recalled that Moscow has repeatedly warned Washington that actions like that significantly increase the risks of an escalation of the conflict and hinder the prospects for peace between Russia and Ukraine. In this regard, he called on the U.S. government to put an end to shipping weapons to that country. In the Donbass, the port of Mariupol is preparing to receive the first ships after the intense battles in that city on the Sea of Azov. More details in this piece by Alexander Kirk.
The port of Mariupol has been completely demined, and also marine mines have been removed. As you see, we're doing a tour along the Bay of Mariupol, where ships are expected to start bringing construction materials for the reconstruction of the area, but also to bring products from this zone to other ports of Russia and the Black Sea. A marine officer explained to us with further details how the demining process was conducted at this port located south of the People's Republic of Donetsk. Our Special Forces unit have completed an event to clear the Mariupol port waters together with a group of combat divers. All tasks were fulfilled in full in the waterways in the coordinates of about 10 minutes. What measures are in place now too to rule out the possibility of any sabotage groups in the area. The weather is constantly changing. The sea is stormy, so you just have to work in general terms right away. The water is murky. The eyes can't see, but you have to work with your hands. In short, all tasks by touch. The sailors show the remains of a crane ship sunk by the Ukrainians to prevent access to the port. It turned out to be blocking the entrance to the harbor, and the harbor was blocked off by two screens. Access was blocked, impossible to enter the port. Anti-tank and anti-personnel mines were everywhere. We have a standard sign that is, when the demining team works, when ammunition is detected, the calculation number to find ammunition sets a flag, thereby indicating that it is explosive objects. Then the commander of the demining group approaches, decides to blow up the ammunition depending on the charge or evacuate it if it's subject to it. If not, it is destroyed on the spot.
Alejandro Kirk, Telesur, Mariupol, República Popular de Donetsk.
Russian Agriculture Minister Dmitry Patrushev announced on Friday that they will export around 50 million tons of grain from the 2022-2023 agricultural season. According to his statements, they expect this year's crop to exceed last year's. They also expect, based on their projections, that grain exports for the 2021-2022 agricultural season will exceed 37 million tons, thus reaching record levels. Last year, the country achieved a production of more than 120 million tons of grain, including nearly 76 million tons of wheat. We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. At least 35 people were reported dead in the last 24 hours due to heavy rains affecting the city of Recife, East Brazil. According to the Civil Defense of Pernambuco, most of the victims so far are from the community of Jardim Monteverde in the south zone of Recife. The entity in charge of attending to disasters confirmed that this Saturday alone, there are already 25 deaths linked to the rains in Greater Recife. It also forecasts that the number of deaths could increase. In addition, the National Institute of Meteorology issued a danger alert for heavy rains in Pernambuco, which today may have winds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour. In China, at least 8 deaths were reported in the province of Fujian amid torrential rains and floods. The local government said that rescuers found the lifeless bodies of 5 victims inside a factory, then found the remaining 3 in a residential building. The tragedy followed several hours of continuous rain, which caused landslides that completely covered both buildings. At least 11,300 people were also affected by the disaster, which caused damage to the infrastructure of their homes. Electrical supplies, telecommunications, and road traffic were also reported to have been disrupted. Meanwhile, a total of 7 provinces remain on alert in the framework of the torrential rains that have left more than 220 millimeters of water in less than 24 hours since Thursday, May 26th. More than 30 people were killed and others injured when a stampede broke out at a church event in the southeastern Nigerian city of Port Harcourt on Saturday, according to police and security officials. According to a regional spokesman for Nigeria's Civil Defense Corps, the incident took place at the Port Harcourt Polo Club, the venue of the annual Shop for Free charity program organized by the King's Assembly Pentecostal Church. The drive had not yet begun when the stampede took place. The crowd forced their way into the venue despite the fact that the gate was closed, resulting in the deadly charge. A police spokesperson said an investigation has been launched and a report will be released in due course. African leaders met on Saturday to discuss efforts to fight a growing extremist threat and push back against a recent run of military coups in the continent. The Summit on Terrorism and Unconstitutional Change is organized by the African Union and is being hosted in Malabo, the capital of Equatorial Guinea. Delegates listened to addresses, and Saturday's opening ceremony was addressed by President Obiang, Angola's president, and by chairperson of African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mohammed. After progress at promoting democracy, Africa has seen recent coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, and a military rule in Chad. A host of terror groups operate across many countries, including the Islamic State group Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram. Mohammed called on African nations to make better use of their own troops in combating the terror threat facing Africa, and so reduce any dependency on forces from other continents.
While we have the means and the men necessary, African armies count, according to certain recent estimates of 2022, some 2.7 million men. Mobilizing just 1 or 2% of this force would give us the means necessary to reduce our dependence on foreign forces and to have a chance of success against terrorism.
The United States targeted 2 Russian banks as part of new sanctions over alleged support for North Korea and its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The sanctions came after what the U.S. said were 3 new ballistic missiles launched by North Korea on Tuesday, including 1 intercontinental ballistic missile. The launches occurred after President Joe Biden ended an Asian trip in which he stressed Washington's commitment to defending allies from the North's nuclear threat. The United States said this week's launches brought North Korea's total for this year to 23, as the country pushes to develop and expand the range of its nuclear and missile programs. Friday's sanctions targets included 2 Russian banks, Far Eastern and Sputnik, accused of doing business with U.S.-sanctioned North Korean entities. The food crisis has begun to reach its most pressing peak. World wheat stocks will be exhausted in 10 weeks, according to a United Nations report. Sarah Manker, director of the analytics firm Grow Intelligence, presented a report to the UN Security Council warning about the complex situation of the food crisis. The causes, she said, are not just the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but also the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the disruption of the supply chain, and extreme natural events. David Beasley, executive director of the United Nations World Food Program, echoed the alarms raised by Sarah Manker, adding that the crisis is already leading to serious protests and unrest in countries such as Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Peru. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Telesur English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.